Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and it's Hump Day. And with me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all listeners to Wednesday, where it's time for coffee, laughter, and maybe a little bit of mischief.
Ooh, tantalizing. I hate coffee, though.
How dare you?
Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for thought.
Well, why don't we get right into the stories while I enjoy my morning kibble brew.
What are you going to enjoy today?
Chamomile vanilla honey tea.
Ah, relaxing. Is it because of the story from last Monday?
Maybe. Actually, this is really good.
Thank you. Well, for any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story, am I the a-hole for calling my cousin a bad parent and saying she's the last person I'd take advice from? I, 37 female, am a single parent to my 13-year-old daughter, Anna. It's been only us ever since my husband passed away in a car accident 5 years ago. Losing him was very hard, but we have slowly been able to come to terms with it. Lately, Anna has picked up the habit of wearing her dad's clothes. Nothing much, just things like hoodies and some shirts of his. I don't mind, because it's a good way for her to keep her father close and she doesn't look weird in them. Last week, there was a family gathering at my mom's house. Anna went wearing one of her dad's old shirts and a pair of jean shorts. When we got there, we said hi to everyone together. Then she went to hang out with my nieces and I stuck with the adults. While I was talking to my sister, one of my cousins, Beatrice, 45 female, decided to butt in the conversation to talk about the way Anna was dressed. Beatrice is, for lack of better terms, a bitch that uses her religion as a way to mind other people's business. So that did not surprise me, but it still annoyed me. She has 5 kids, 1 son and 4 daughters, so she thinks she's the best person to give parenting advice in the entire family. She went on a whole spiel about how I'm a bad mother and how I should stop Anna from wearing male clothes because that would result in her ending up as a lesbian or worse. It could be a way for her to adhere to the transgenderism while under my roof. Now, I wouldn't care if my daughter was gay or a son, but like hell am I allowing someone to say that shit about her just from the way she dresses? I just sort of snapped and told her, look who's talking about being a bad mother. Isn't your son a bum? Didn't all of your daughters run off just to get away from your annoying ass and shitty parenting? Better a gay kid than whatever the hell you've got going on. You're the last person I want any advice from. Stay in your lane. Plus a bunch of other things I can't remember right now because I'm that mad. As y'all can imagine, she didn't like that. She started crying, then laughed. Now I'm getting flack from some people in her side of the family for being so mean to her, because even if what I said is true, I shouldn't have snapped at her like that when she was just being concerned about me and my kid, when I know she's been having a hard time with her family and that I should apologize. Now I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong here. So, am I the a-hole?
OP, I do not believe you're the a-hole. This one's pretty straightforward to me. You're at a family party gathering situation?
Yes.
Unfortunately, you lost your husband a number of years ago, and your kid likes to wear his clothes sometimes. That's cool. However you guys got to cope is however you guys got to cope. I am sorry to hear that. That sucks. It sounds like you allow your daughter to express herself the way she wants. It sounds like, though, you have a cousin that has 5 kids, and because she has 5 kids, you explain it, she believes that she's able to parent every other parent in the world. I hate those people. You do point out interesting things about this person. They do have 5 kids, but it sounds like one's a bum and the others, on the day they probably turned 18, fled the house.
Would you like to hear more in depth about those instances?
Oh, do they go into more detail?
Yes, they actually responded to a commenter on it.
Well, let's hear about this.
So a commenter said, well, what kind of things did she do? And our poster said she did a lot.
Oh.
Her oldest daughter, A, ran off with a boyfriend after my cousin kicked her out for having a non-church boyfriend. Then Beatrice spent years telling the whole family her daughter ran off to become a prostitute, even though we all knew it was a lie. My sister contacted A as soon as she learned about it to see what happened, and A explained everything. The second eldest, B, also ran off with a boyfriend because of the abuse my cousin and her ex-husband put her through. They made her work to the bone. She had to get good grades, do most of the chores at home, and they even had her working because they decided to make her pay rent even though she was a minor. The final straw was when my cousin's husband hit her, and B's boyfriend decided he had enough, took her away from there, but not before rocking that asshole shit. The middle one was more complicated. My cousin married the poor girl to the preacher's son at 16. She didn't tell nobody of the family about that until nothing could be done to stop it. The girl stuck around until her youngest sister became 18. Then she picked her up and the two of them left town together. They lived with me for a while until they got a place of their own. When I say my cousin is a bad mother, I meant it.
That is a bad mother. I always love how people that are the foulest are probably some of the first people to go ahead and start throwing the stones and start accusing people first and pointing fingers. So yeah, no, you're definitely not the a-hole. You put her in her place and it sounds like she's just kind of been misright her entire life. And unfortunately, it sounds like your family is let her get away with this up until you said something, right? It was her word against her kids and everyone just and your family looked the other way. And that's terrible. But I don't think you grow from being that terrible of a person. You're definitely not the a-hole. Good for you for putting your cousin in her place. And it sounds like being a good aunt. Yeah, keep taking care of your kid.
Well, as you probably already know, the consensus is that she's not the a-hole. In fact, one of the funniest comments that I saw for me personally was, I'm going to file this under f*** around and find out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's go on to our next story regarding names. Am I the a-hole for telling my fiancé my son must be named a real junior? Am I the a-hole? My fiancé is pregnant, and when we found out it's a boy, we decided to make him a junior. My name starts with the letter D, so his name is gonna be D blank Junior. My fiancé said she can agree to name him my name, but doesn't want to add the junior on the birth certificate because she hates the nickname DJ, which my family has already started calling him. I got mad and said in order for him to be a real junior, he has to actually have junior in the name and to get over the nickname. I think having the option for both a full name and a nickname is nice, but she's refusing to include the junior to the name and said I'm not compromising. She got upset herself and said that she already agreed to make him a junior by using my name and I'm an a-hole. I told her she's the a-hole since she doesn't want to include the junior all over a dumb nickname she doesn't have to use. Am I the a-hole?
I guess we're all a-holes. I have some skin in this game. Because...
Please enlighten our listeners.
Is this why you picked this story?
Possibly.
I have a very long name and... it does not match my father's to the T, but I still have junior at the end. But I've gotten told by many people throughout my lifetime when they see my name that it is not a true junior because it does not match word for word. So I guess I can understand his stance on that because I mean, what I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. I personally, I don't know. I guess for me, he's more stickler about it and it sounds like it's important to him. And his wife simply doesn't like the junior on it because she doesn't want the nickname to be coming with it. He's right, though. You don't have to use that nickname. No one's forcing you to do that. So why would she have a problem with it if it's something that she doesn't have to say? Well, as not a junior, but is a junior, I'm going to say you are the a-hole. You should pick another name for your kid. Stop with this madness. There's so many things that you can create in the world with names. You don't have to have a little version of you like in name form. Like that doesn't make any sense. But that's just coming from me and my sitch. So I'm just going to say you're the a-hole. Go find another name.
Well, the consensus is that the OP is the a-hole.
Okay. It's probably not for the reason I pointed out, but I look forward to hearing.
Similar to the reason, actually.
Oh, okay.
And the reason is you're trying to dictate who your child is by having them copy your name.
Yeah.
And you're not having any leeway at all. If anything, the fact that a name is supposed to be something that both parents put down and are supposed to be happy with is extremely important.
Sure.
And yeah, it might seem like something small as a nickname being DJ. For her, it becomes the identity of her child.
Okay.
And she doesn't want that identity for her child. She doesn't fight the fact that the child's name can be the name of his father, but she doesn't want it to essentially devolve into him being a person that's not his own. And a lot of people kind of coincided with that names, when you take on just because it's somebody else and it's sort of a reminder of that someone else, it sort of dictates the personality of that child without really intentionally doing it.
I was a junior, but I've never had that type of issue. I've always been my own person. I understand though, everyone's different. Every child and parent and their relationships are different. So me saying that isn't fair to someone living their life and going, well, I was named a junior and I never felt like my name was me. So I grew up playing sports, so people didn't say my first name.
Oh, they said your last name.
They said my last name, and that's how I grew up, with being referred to as my last name. So maybe I don't have that problem because I've literally only ever been, as I was growing up, only been called my last name like everywhere I ever went. So I don't know.
Until you met me.
Yes.
And then I've called you every rendition of Tim.
Yes.
It's been fun.
So I can understand where people might feel a certain way. If it just depends on how you grow up and who you are.
I think in the end, it needs to be both parents that need to
Definitely,
be happy
I agree
with the
and
name.
agree on that. Is you both have to agree on it.
It can't just be the OP saying, deal with it.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like they still have to agree on some things when it comes to our last story. But let's go on to our next story and see if there can be some meeting of the minds here. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my mom and dad's boyfriend walk me down the aisle? So I, 24 female, am graduating from university in like just under a month. So my fiancé and I have started planning our wedding. My mom and dad had me fairly young. They were both 20, and up until I was 13, they both argued and yelled at each other a lot. Then, all of a sudden, they just stopped. Things got better between them. They both got a lot happier, and we started doing a lot more family activities. Us three would watch a show every night. We'd go to the movies or a restaurant or hiking and stuff on the weekends. We'd start having little parties and stuff when I got good grades. Then, when I was 14, they introduced me to Brian, 33 now, 23 then, and told me that he was their boyfriend and they'd been seeing him for a year and he was moving in with us. Things got so weird after that. Like we stopped watching shows every night. On weekends, if we were going someplace, it'd either be me and mom and dad stays home with Brian, or me and dad and mom stays home with Brian. The only thing that stayed the same were the little parties for good grades. It was so weird being around Brian alone, but even weirder when he'd get affectionate with mom and dad in front of me. And I honestly stopped bringing my friends over after one of them saw him and dad getting into it on the couch. But he always made my mom and dad happy and never gets in my way if I'm sad and I need to cry to dad or cuddle my mom. So why would I do anything about it? Well, my parents came to see me with this genius idea that my dad and Brian should both be the ones to walk me down the aisle, saying Brian was kind of like a stepdad to me, but he wasn't. Yes, I'll say he's family, but he's not any kind of dad to me. I made it clear that I only want my dad to walk me down the aisle. They asked if I could give him any other role. I said no, and they both got sad and said it was like I was rejecting their bond with Brian. My fiancé said he supports me, but my cousins are staying out of it because they always found the situation weirder. Maybe I'm wrong though, because Brian means a lot to my parents, so if I'm the a-hole here, please let me know.
What a nuanced journey we're about to go on. Good story.
Thank you.
It's very interesting. Let me see if I understand the story. OP says parents married young, had a kid young.
Correct.
Up until 13, family was a little rocky, yelling at each other, still growing up because they were in their 20s when they had a kid.
Correct.
Sounds like they hit their pacing when they're in their mid-30s. Sounds like it got a lot healthier on the back end. And she benefited from that. 13 comes around. Everything's great now. They start doing everything as a family. They're getting really involved, having parties, going out. Things are changing. 14 comes. They introduce her to new family friend at this point, Brian. Brian is, I guess, in a relationship. Are we calling this a throuple?
Yes, essentially it's a throuple.
And they've chose to do that with their life. And you can live the way you want to. I'm not here to pass judgment on anyone. If that's what makes you happy in life and you're not harming anyone, I really don't care. That's just how I feel about a lot of situations. He stayed out of the way when she needed her parents. She makes it very clear, though. Brian is not her parent. Brian is in a relationship with her parents. That does not mean that Brian is her parent. But her parents, unfortunately, have made a connection that because Brian is in their life, that Brian means the same to her as he does to them. And that's where they made their mistake, because she doesn't see him as that. She does see him as family, but she does not see him as a father figure. And she's allowed to be that way. She's 24 now. We're fast forwarding the clock. She's graduating. She's getting married. Congratulations. She wants now for her dad to walk her down the aisle. Her father has a different idea. He wants Brian to also walk her down the aisle. She's opposed to this. Normally, your father or a father figure in your life walks you down the aisle. Unfortunately for Voyse, her father had passed a while ago, and she had her mom figure walk her down the aisle.
It was an amazing time.
So we can understand having to break tradition for certain situations. This, though, is not that situation. She has a father. She loves her father. She wants her father to walk her down the aisle. I don't see why that's a big deal. And for her to feel a certain way about it, she's allowed to have that. That's her dad. I'm going to lean into the fact that I don't believe OP is the a-hole in this situation.
Well, let me give you the consensus and then a viewpoint. So the consensus on Reddit is that she's not the a-hole. And one of the viewpoints that I think kind of puts things down quite nicely goes like this. Not the a-hole. As a polyamorous person, your parents are being very selfish. Brian will likely never be to you what he is to them, relatively speaking, and they shouldn't try to force it. That's inappropriate and is only going to make your resentment worse. If it doesn't happen naturally, then it doesn't happen at all. You're wonderful for being happy that your parents are happy, and this is a complicated situation that most of society still looks on very unfavorably. I'd recommend talking with a therapist about this. Your emotional needs matter too. And that sort of sums it all up. A lot of people say, especially when it comes to polyamorous relationships, it's okay for them to be happy with their relationship.
Sure.
But it is not okay to go ahead and sort of force the bonds that don't exist between other people in their life.
Yeah.
There's a difference between accepting how somebody decides they want to be and then forcing a relationship that doesn't exist.
This was an interesting story.
It is very nuanced, which is why I wanted to go ahead and share it. So let's go on to our next story. Am I the a-hole for showing favoritism for my daughter and financially hurting my son?
Yes.
You haven't even let me finish. My ex-wife, 36 female, and I, 36 male, have been divorced for 7 years now. We have twins, both 17, female and male. My wife and I are the stereotype of high school sweethearts. I'm more of a geek. She was a cheerleader. My son takes after my wife, and my daughter takes after me. When they were younger, I gave them the option of allowance. They could either spend the money on what they wanted to, or I could walk them through investments and savings. My wife was all for this at the time. We explained that each have a set amount of money that we have put away for future schooling as well as a car fund. At first, both of my kids decided to invest, and I started to show them how to and the risk involved. My son put his in a very risky investment against my advice and ended up losing it and decided not to do it anymore within a few weeks. My daughter started off rough, but quickly got the hang of it, playing with different investments and companies. She has been in the positive most weeks. The issue is that due to this, my daughter has saved up more money than her brother. She also likes to spend most of her time over at my house versus my son over at my ex-wife's house. My daughter's interests are more minimalistic when it comes to most things and does not spend a lot of money. She will when she finds things she likes. She is not into fashion, rarely puts on makeup. When she does, it is very light, bought a used but nice car, etc. They just got their acceptance letters for college, and she will be able to pick any of her choices due to the grades and her savings, plus our contributions. My son, on the other hand, spends most of his money when he gets it. Always has new clothes constantly, bunch of shoes, bought a new, very expensive car with payments, goes out all the time, spends everything he gets. My son is upset because he can't go to the college he wants because he would need to get a loan, and with what I make, he doesn't qualify for much. My ex says I need to stop favoring my daughter and financially hurting my son and just paying for his college, among other things. Her and her side of the family are all calling me an a-hole for not paying because you easily could. I told them that they had a choice when he was younger and he didn't listen. I also pointed out the fact that if he had saved his money, he would have also been able to go where he wanted. He needed to get a job to cover costs if he wanted to go, and life was about choices. Early edited to add, I did keep asking him to try again throughout the years, but he didn't care. I gave up almost 2 years ago when he said he wanted to live almost full-time at his mom's house. We had an argument that made me back off. I didn't just stop and drop it when he was really young. Edited 2, we did not give him his college fund. He has money in his college fund that he can attend a community college for 4 years or a good college for 2. Nothing fancy or big. The money that was invested was allowance or spare money. My daughter would use birthday money, Christmas money, allowance, or any extra chore money. His fund was never used in any way other than for school. It is safe and locked up. Allowance was free to use money. The school and car fund were separate and not accessible by the kids. I'm not bragging, but I could send them to the best colleges for as many years as they want and fund their lives comfortably. Edit, drama comment. Question on what I meant by among other things. Basically, unlimited schooling, backpacking, trip across Asia, paying his car off, lodging near campus, and living money were all brought up, most by my ex-wife. She has not put anything towards these funds. Am I the a-hole?
All right. So it sounds like OP's had 2 kids, twins. Very interesting the way it worked out for both of them. Because it sounds like one definitely took after the father and the other one took after the mother, the way he says it. There's still a college fund for both of them. That's never been up in the air. The difference would be which college. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
because he says it's enough to afford a community college or a good college, just
for
not
2 years.
one of the ones that he wants to go to. So the daughter, throughout this time that they've been giving them an allowance, has been saving it, spending it wisely, investing it, taking the knowledge that her father wants to impart and using it. So good for her, because it sounds like her decision making is worked out. Although we are talking about children, so that's kind of the rub here. My gut tells me that OP is not the a-hole. I feel like he did a good job of showing exactly what we talk about all the time. Decisions, consequences. It's not like they're not going to pay for him to go to college. He's still going to college. It's just not the one that he's going to get. There are other ways to get about life than having it spoon-fed to you by your parents. Now, for the parents that can't afford to help their kids get through and get a head start in life, that's great. Because it sounds like that's what he was trying to do. Like I said, you can see it with the 2 differing stories here now, where his son is like, he's still going to go to college, but it's not going to be the one he wants. And his daughter's going to be able to, through good decision making, good grades,
Saving,
learning how to, because that's the biggest thing about money. Anyone can earn it. It's learning how to spend it wisely, invest it, save it. Like, there's so many things outside of just making the money. And I think that's where people get lost a lot of time in life is, okay, you've made a lot of money. That's great. How are you spending it? What are you doing with that money? Is it working for you after you made it? Or are you just spending it on everything under the sun? I would definitely make sure to stick your foot in the sand here. What it sounds like might end up happening is your son's going to turn into a mooch later on if you don't let him know the expectation of how things work. That could be a dangerous situation you're setting up for him by allowing him to have made the decisions he did and then not have him walk through the consequences of it. Because this can be a great learning experience for him. If done correctly, he can learn like, yeah, I blew all my money when I was growing up. But you know what? It taught me a good lesson. I went through college. I understood what a dollar meant and how to invest it and save it and move forward with my money. But I needed to learn that instead of my father bailing me out every situation I'm in. That can be a good way to teach him, right? I'm telling you, this is a super interesting story and a good way for him to learn from his mistakes without it costing him everything, right? Because he still gets to go to college. There are many kids that graduate high school now in America that will never walk through a college door because they simply can't afford it. You're not the a-hole, OP.
well, the consensus is actually pretty split on this.
Is it?
And it's so split that they actually labeled this AITA not enough info.
Interesting. Can I ask this?
Yes.
Would it be that people think he's the a-hole because he can afford it and he should just do it?
In some ways, some people, said that. A lot of people misconstrued what the poster was saying when it came to the money and how to understand it. So Of course, my worry with you was that you wouldn't understand that this money that they were investing and trying to learn how to save and invest in didn't have anything to do with the college fund.
Yeah, it was split. This was
Those are
just
separate.
pocket change that he was talking about.
But a lot of people didn't understand that.
Okay.
A lot of people put onus in saying, hey, you're trying to teach your kids some really advanced stuff when they're very young. They're bound to make mistakes.
Sure,
And
that's why I said at the beginning, they are kids.
correct. And as he had inserted in his edited to add parts, he didn't just stop trying to teach him. And it wasn't until there was a blow up argument that he sort of backed off from it fully.
Yeah, where the kid chose to live with his mother more.
Correct. And it was 2 years before this incident. So if his son is 17 now, that would have been at 15.
Yeah.
And at that point,
I mean, I know a lot of 15-year-olds aren't trying to make the best decisions with the money. They're just trying to get everything they can. And I understand that part of this.
so you had the half of Redditors who say, if you have the ability to help your child, you should help them. It's their education. Why would you not?
And my rebuttal to that is, by you bailing him out, you're setting yourself up and him for a rough ride later. That every single thing he does in life is going to be paid for by you.
And bailed out.
That's the problem.
And that's where the other half of Redditors went ahead and came in and said, look, it's not like he's leaving him high and dry.
He still gets to go to school.
He actually still has funds for him there. It's just going to be difficult, but it's not impossible.
Yep.
Now, our poster was kind enough to actually add an update on his own personal page. So let me go ahead and read that out loud and
Interesting.
see what you think after this.
Let's go.
Hello, all.
Hi.
Hope all is well. Let's get down to it. So my original AITA was about showing favoritism for my daughter and financially hurting my son. The comments went way far from the topic. It was interesting for me. For the people who sent me aggressive messages, not cool. Some questions to be addressed. 1. Why would I just not pay for everything? I am trying to teach my kids about financial responsibility. Money has value, and nothing is given without work. I bet if my son posted his view, you would call him an entitled a-hole. 2. But they were so young when they started gambling with money in the stock market. True, but they have grown up since then. Yes, they are still kids, but maturity does not just develop at 25 like some people on here think.
That's true.
3. You gave them their college fund to waste. No. College fund has always been secured and untouched unless I was putting money in it. They used allowance money. 4. Why are you not giving him a good start in life? He has a better start than the majority of people. So I talked to my daughter, and she said she would be upset if I just gave him the money. She worked hard and values her time and effort. I agreed that would be a bad idea, but we came up with 3 options. I added a 4th. To present him/my ex-wife. All of them had rules attached, and the same amount would be given to my daughter. Rules grades, housing rules, and behavior. 1. He sells his car and some of his shoe collections to save money and put it towards the fund, and I will help him again to make passive income. 2. He picks a lower college that is more cost-effective, but still a good school. He gets a job, and I will match his pay. 3. I just give him the money, but as a loan, 0% interest, but he has to pay back in a timely manner. Money, if paid back, will go back to him in the future, down payment or wedding or something. 4. Ex and family put in the difference in the account. I laid it all out for him. My ex and him did not like it, so I asked my ex why she is pushing this so much and why she has not put any money into the account since we originally opened it. There were excuses, and she finally said, I have to save money for my daughter, 6, almost 7 female, unless you want to set up a fund for her as well. I am setting things up for my youngest daughter, 3 female, the same way I did with my twins. I'm not doing it for her daughter. Anyway, I have given him a few weeks to figure out what he wants. He acknowledged that I was right. He was unfair to his sister about the way he went about things and will do better in the future. He picked a modified version of option 2. He is still going to his number 4 pick, is looking for a job, sold some shoes, and said he will be responsible for housing costs. He apologized to me and his sister. I hope he keeps working hard towards his goals.
It sounds like a good dad.
Well, we went on to hear some really good parenting values. And let's see what happens when it comes to godparents. for our next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to go through the heavily religious process of becoming my nephew's godfather? My sister-in-law, Stephanie, recently had a baby. Stephanie wants my partner, Kate, Stephanie's sister, and I to be his godparents. I was honored and initially agreed. The trouble came a week ago when we sat down to discuss the process of becoming godparents. Kate's family is Catholic, not strict or devout, but Stephanie still wants her son to be baptized through the church. I found out that in order to be a godfather, I'd basically be required to become Catholic. I'd need to be confirmed by the church and would be strongly encouraged to attend weekly mass, pay tithes, etc. after being confirmed. Kate and I would also need to meet with a priest to discuss our living situation. Because we live together, we have been together for 14 years, but are not married through the Catholic Church. I'm not religious. If I had to identify, I'd probably say agnostic, maybe leaning towards atheistic. And I don't feel comfortable with converting to Catholicism in order to be my nephew's godfather. I explained this to Stephanie, and she got very upset. She said I should be willing to go through the steps and that I could just not participate in the religious aspect afterwards, i.e., go through the process of officially becoming Catholic, and after the baptism, I could dip out on attending church, tithing, etc. I'm very firm in my decision that I don't want to go through with this, but Stephanie is insistent that since I won't really be Catholic, it won't make a difference in my life. She says, "You'll just be Catholic on paper." Stephanie is now threatening to not let us be involved in her son's life anymore. She told Kate, if he's not devoted enough to nephew to do this, does he really care about nephew? And how much can he really care about you if he is willing to ruin your relationship with nephew just because he doesn't want to jump through a few hoops? Kate is fine with my decision. It is possible for a child to only have one godparent, and since she's Catholic, she would be willing to be the sole godparent. Stephanie isn't okay with this option and says it's both of you or neither of you. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be involved in this process if it requires me to join a religion I don't feel comfortable with, even if I wouldn't technically be required to participate in the religion after the baptism ceremony was over?
No. And what? My Lanta, people deal with a lot from their family, so-called family. It's Stephanie, the sister-in-law?
Yes.
That has a problem with everything.
Correct.
Stephanie.
It's either all or nothing.
Oh my goodness, girl. You have some control issues. It's probably better off that you let Stephanie find new godparents for your nephew, because that's not a situation I think any of you guys want a part of. If someone's willing to sit there and tell you your values don't matter, whether or not you believe in something or not, you have the right to believe that. I think when people push beyond that is the issue. She crossed the boundaries. That's really bad. She has no respect for you. Clearly, you can see from OP's perspective that the Stephanie person doesn't think very highly of them at all. To tell someone that you should go through something, regardless of if it's religious or not, and it's definitely against what they want, that's ridiculous. You're telling OP that he should completely rewrite his values. How is that okay for you to tell another human? Ever?
It's not.
I wonder how prevalent this type of situation is for people. I hope it's not.
So, I know your verdict.
Oh, he's definitely not the a-hole.
And the consensus is that the poster is not the a-hole. I was actually reading some commenters who thought that this poster was a troll. Because in their area, this isn't how the Catholic Church works for them. But every region is very different in how they want and dictate certain things to happen for you to be,
Godparent?
I guess, accepted into the church enough to be a godparent. Some places are to the T.
Okay.
You have to, the godparents have to go through marriage counseling through the church. They have to come every week for mass. They have to offer tithes. And some churches aren't like that. They're fine with you coming to mass, preferably every week, but they're fine if you do it at least once a month. So I wouldn't be surprised if in some areas for you to be a godparent, you have to jump through hoops to do that.
Sure.
And for somebody who's not going to be devout Catholic or Christian, that's sort of a mockery of that religion, just to go ahead and I think it's very insulting that Stephanie would say, go ahead and do it, but you don't have to become a devout. You can just do whatever you want afterwards. Just put your name on the paper.
I don't believe that's what Stephanie's game was. I think Stephanie believes that once this person is a confirmed Catholic, that they'll probably just stay along with it. I don't think this was ever a long game of, oh, you can just quit at the end. No, I don't think so. Not someone that controlling.
And a lot of people were actually saying that in the comments. They said it's pretty bad of her to actually blackmail the OP and his partner when it came to even seeing or being around the nephew, and that she is disgusting to have done that.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and walk away from the Catholic Church for a moment, and let's go to our last story involving a school dance. Am I the a-hole for not allowing my son to go to his school dance? My husband, 51 male, and I, 48 female, have 6 children, 19 male, 16 female, 14 female, 13 male, 11 male, and 5 female.
Ooh, they got a big family.
Our 16-year-old, Gianna, is a junior in high school. Our son, Riker, 13, is in 7th grade. The kids are starting to have their school dances. The 7th grade dance is later this month, and the junior banquet is in early May. We have gone shopping for dress clothes for all the dances. We bought Gianna's dress a few weeks ago. Gianna has usually been a good kid throughout her life. This school year has been slightly harder than others, though. Around 2 months ago, we got a call from Gianna's choir teacher saying that Gianna and a few other altos were making racist jokes about some of the new pieces she introduced, including an Urdu song and a song from Honduras. We talked to Gianna about her actions, and we made her write an apology to her teacher, as well as write a 5-paragraph essay on why it is important to respect music from other cultures. Riker has a friend from his baseball team who is Honduran. He was born here, but his mom was born in Honduras and his dad is mixed. When Riker heard about this, he was quite mad and asked if he could have his friend come over and teach her about the culture there. We allowed this, and he came over with his parents and they made food, and Riker and his family talked about sports and music there. Gianna was very clearly not enjoying it, but we made her engage anyways. Our daughter and a group of her friends, including her boyfriend, got in trouble last week for making racist jokes again. We took her phone to investigate to see where this hatred could be coming from. Riker had his friends over for a sleepover the night we found out about this. During dinner, the boys were talking about how their coach would never let them live through it if they bullied a kid or made racist jokes. My husband and I tried helping guide them through their feelings, like asking them about the diverse athletes they liked. Gianna was hanging out with friends at the mall that night, some of whom were doing dress shopping for the upcoming dance. Our son and the boys decided to use this as an opportunity to trash the dress, using mud, drinks, and cutting a few holes in the dress. We found out when Gianna came home, entered her room, and saw the dress. The boys were laughing, and Riker said they did it because Gianna didn't deserve to go to the banquet, and saying how there could be kids that look like his Honduran friend. We told Riker we were trying our best to educate her in a very white town. We're also white. We told him that this was the wrong way to take out his anger, and that as a result, he couldn't go to his 7th grade dance. Riker told us to shut up and spent the rest of his night in his room with the boys. Riker texted my parents and siblings as well as my in-laws. A few have called us and came to his defense, saying he's just a kid who was trying to cope with anger. Now we're unsure if we're in the wrong. Am I the a-hole?
What is possible of the last story we have? All right. They say they're a white family from a white part of town, and they're trying to teach their kids better. That's good. Sounds like your daughter's got some questionable things going on in her life where she thinks it's acceptable to be a bigot. So they're trying to correct it. They dug through her phone to see where this is all going, but unfortunately the internet is vast and wide. So it kind of sounds like something went wrong along the way. What's weird is she got caught, she wrote an essay, she had an apology letter, and then she reoffended a couple weeks later. So obviously she didn't learn the lesson the first time. Although I don't believe she should also be going to the dance. They found that out that night though. Don't get me wrong. I love that the 13-year-old has that energy towards the situation. It looks like he's got a good education behind him. His friend is Honduran, right? The parents came over. They tried to educate, open their eyes a little bit more.
His moral compass seems to be pretty straight, in my opinion.
Definitely. He's got a good compass, yes, but then he goes and he vandalizes and destroys something that doesn't belong to him. You can't teach him that that's okay. What value does that show anyone?
2 wrongs doesn't make a right.
And that's where I can't agree with the son either. And that sucks that he has to miss out on the dance, because I think you said it, he's 7th grade. We can all remember the awkwardness of a 7th grade dance. Some of you just hanging out with your friends in a corner, separated, girls, guys, like no one's actually dancing with each other.
Some weird intermingling where they're just standing around.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe it's a lot different today. I don't know.
Could be. Well, so our consensus is that the poster is the a-hole. And they say that the poster is the a-hole in this because why is it that the punishment for the son doesn't weigh the same as the bigotry of their daughter and her actions? A lot of the feelings on this was that you are punishing this child. Yes, he did something wrong, but his punishment does not reflect accurately versus what your daughter did, not just once, but twice.
Sure. Okay.
Knowing that you and your family brought in this family to try and teach and show culture shows that she's got absolutely no moral standards here.
Nope.
And yet you punish your son more harshly than her. And that's sort of where everything became stagnant until this update. Now on to our update. Hello.
Hey.
I first want to thank everyone for the advice. Yesterday was insane processing just how many comments I got, and also talking to family, including my siblings, parents, and in-laws about where to go from here. I get it. My husband and I were in the wrong. We first talked to Riker. He told us how mad he was at Gianna. He told us about how some girls in his middle school have been racist towards his friend, so he wanted to protect him. He told us him and his friends made the plot together because they felt like she could hurt someone if she didn't face backlash. We asked him if he regretted his decision purely to see his mood. He immediately said no. We did go over anger management though. We then talked to Gianna and things went much worse than we expected. She defended herself and used much worse language than what she got in trouble at school for. She used slurs and called Riker a crybaby. My family and my husband's family all live close to us. We decided to have dinner with my siblings, parents, and in-laws. We asked for advice, discussed everything, and had them question Gianna and Riker some more. Again, Gianna expressed much worse sentiments than we could have ever imagined. Riker was more put together and went into depth about his feelings. After our families had left, my husband and I went in our bedroom to discuss what punishments would be. We first spoke to Riker. We told him he could go to the dance and then discuss the money with him. We decided to not make him pay for the financial damages to us, but we asked him how he felt if he bought something with his hard-earned money from gold caddying. He eventually said he understood our initial anger after that thought experiment. Off the recommendations of my brother, we also suggested looking into how he could channel his desire for social justice into sports, the most important thing in Riker's life besides his friends. We then talked to Gianna. We told her she would not be attending the junior banquet and told her she would have to read and write a report on 2 books from a list of books on racism. Some commenters have made recommendations and we will look into them. She has also lost all of her devices except her school Chromebook until further notice. We also apologize to Riker for holding him to higher standards simply because he's the high achiever of the family. He also mentioned the fact that we don't give him enough attention because of that. We are looking into different therapies, such as family therapy or individual therapy for Gianna, possibly Riker, and even our other kids.
All right. Well, it sounds like you raised a good son. Like I think the uncle said, you got to channel that anger into better things. So good. It looks like they're at least trying to make sure that lessons are learned in this situation. I think on all sides.
Yes, I know you and I definitely live by these standards, but it's not how you act in the good moments. It's how you act in those worst moments that define who you are.
Sure. Anyone can be Superman on a sunny day. Yeah, it's good for them that they're trying to make sure that they can kind of course correct on this whole situation because it sounds like the daughter is kind of lost. There's no reason to be that way. It sounds like they're raising a good son, and he gets to go to the dance. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We are regularly posting on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We would love to hear your opinions and your viewpoints in the comments section below, so please go ahead and drop us a line on what you think about these stories.
And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.